Which parties do you think are the most relevant to today?
Well, I would say the American Party of the 1850s. They were an anti-immigrant party, anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant party. And of course, in our history, we always say we love immigrants. We have the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. But we have mixed feelings about immigrants. We want them, we need them, but we're always sort of suspicious of immigrants. Now, in terms of the Liberty Party, up until the 1830s, this was predominantly a Protestant country. Perhaps 1 or 2% of the population was Catholic, no more than that. But starting in the 1840s with the potato famine in Ireland, where you get an influx, a big influx of Irish Catholics. They settle in the big cities. They vote as a bloc. People resent that. You also have a big influx of Germans in the late 1840s because of the failed revolutions in Central Europe, and about half the Germans are Catholic. The Germans tend to scatter. They tend to go out to the Midwest. They have some capital. They buy land, so they're a little less visible. But the Irish are very visible. They take over certain neighborhoods. They vote as a bloc. You know, they listen to what the bishops have to say about things. And the natives, the native Protestant Americans, come to resent them. There were also prejudices against Catholics in general that go back to in European history. So secret organizations start to be formed. One of them is called the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner. They hold their secret meetings and they have secret handshakes, and people ask them, well, what do you do in these meetings? And they say, I know nothing. So they get to be called the Know-Nothings. That term was coined by Horace Greeley, who's the editor of the New York Tribune. So eventually, in the 1850s, they form a political party called the American Party. They do very well in a lot of local elections and some state elections, and then in 1856 they decide to run a presidential candidate. The Whig Party had faded after the election of 1852, so there was only the Democrat Party at that time. So the American Party feels, well, gee, we can become the second major party. So they decide to field a candidate in 1856. They pick Millard Fillmore as their candidate. He had been president. He ran with Zachary Taylor in 1848. Zachary Taylor died in office after about a year, and Millard Fillmore becomes president. He's president for 3 years. So he is like a celebrity. He's a name. So they ask him to head the ticket. Now, the interesting thing about Millard Fillmore is that he's not anti-immigrant. He's not anti-Catholic. And while they're holding the convention in Philadelphia, the so-called city of brotherly love, Millard Fillmore is in the Vatican meeting the Pope. But I guess nobody knew that over in Italy, so you know, it was not a problem. But he comes back, the campaign runs, and they do very well. They get 22% of the vote, one of the highest percents for any third party in American history. And what they wanted was their platform was to extend the waiting period for citizenship for 25 years. At that point, it was 5 years, and if you intended to become a citizen, you could vote. So they want to extend this, this period to 25 years and take the franchise away from these immigrants. Now, they don't become the major second party because in 1854, 1855, the Republican Party is formed. They run for the first time in 1856. John Fremont is their candidate. He gets 35% of the vote. So the Republicans in that election become the second party. And the American Party, you know, skyrockets then. But then they fade away because the issue becomes slavery. The war is approaching. There's tensions between the North and the South. And people feel they really didn't accomplish anything. But I bring up, your original question was, how is it relevant to today? Well, we've got issues with Muslims. We've got issues with Mexicans. In the late 19th century, Eastern and Southern Europeans came, Italians, Jews, and Greeks. Eventually, the door was shut on them in the 1920s. Of course, the American Party. And there were earlier issues with immigrants. I mean, you wonder now, you know, when the first English settlers came, The Indians weren't thrilled. So every group that came to the United States, there were problems upon their arrival of the people who were already here. And in an ironic sense, the only group that did not face this resistance were the African slaves. I mean, they were welcomed with open arms and open pocketbooks, if I may add that.